that they wasn't calling up the inactive reserve at that time. But if I wanted to volunteer and go on over there, I could go right on the same orders and be accepted just like it was before. But, you know, like it was, I thought it played right straight down the line, and I figured, well, I just won't go. I just won't volunteer this time anyhow. So it rocked on along there, and it wasn't very long before my enlistment run out. And, you know, I just didn't re-enlist. Well, now, that might have been the only time that I didn't play it right straight down the line, you might say, but I didn't re-enlist. And something else, in that time that I was in that reserve there, that the Army Air Corps, they got out of the Army Air Corps business, and they formed a new part of the service, the Air Force. You had your Army, Navy, Marines, and the Air Force. And I got in on that too. I got my discharge from the United States Air Force. Well, now I guess that one reason that I got out of that Army Reserve was because a year or so before, about the time I guess that the United States Air Force was formed, that they reclassified everybody that was in reserve. And I remember I went down to Monroe, Louisiana, to the big down there at Selman Field, and I got reclassified, and they reclassified everybody that wanted to be or should be, or anything like that. Anyhow, and it wound up that I got a new rating, a new MOS number, and I was taken off the combat crew as a mechanic or line chief, and I was given a rating in the transportation department of the Air Force. I was still in the Air Force, but it seemed like that they had sort of a transportation department in there, and it might have been the small railroads or things like that around the Army camps. I really did. It sort of qualified me for what in civilian life would be sort of a... Now, this is not to be confused with the motor wheel, which every squadron has, you know. Every squadron, just like all of the outfits in the Army had their trucks and everything like that to provide local transportation and stuff like that. And you had a motor wheel department where they maintained and serviced and dispatched all those trucks and things like that. But this outfit that I was in was strictly not a part of the motor wheel department. Now, when I was reclassified in this Army Air Force outfit down there, my MOS rating would qualify me to be sort of an assistant to the assistant transportation officer in the outfit. And I would eventually work up. My OS number would qualify me to be the assistant transportation officer, which would carry the rank of a warrant officer. Well, now, you might sort of see there why I stayed in this reserve at that time, because the world situation and everything, you know, we just come out of one big war, and we had another little war over in Korea, and they was calling everybody up, even the inactive reserve, which I was in, and at the time it didn't look like a bad deal, because I might have to go back in, and I'd already done my part, I thought, flying on them airplanes and everything like that, which is sort of an uncertain situation. And if I could get in there sort of on the ground and get in that transportation department and still get a pretty good rank and something that qualified me to go on hook, you know, well, I thought that might be the thing to do at that time. Well, by the time my enlistment was up in that Air Force Reserve, well, Dad sort of come to some sort of an agreement over there in Korea, and you could tell that the war was over. Actually, up until that time, you know, we'd been in wars all around the world so long, so you really didn't know whether it was over or not. That the Korean deal, you know, might be just a continuation of it, and you, just a guy like me, you really didn't know. But you sort of just depending on, you know, what people said, what you read in papers and all of that. But by then, you could tell that the war was really over, actually, and anything that was taking place from then on was just sort of a politics deal, you know. Well, I really don't know how to explain it. Just really a political situation. Well, in any case, I'd doctored my Army service record up to qualify me to be a mechanic on an airplane, or a flight chief, or to work right on up to a system line chief or a line chief. And I could always fall back on those invoice numbers because they were on my service record and I was qualified for them. And I could perform that duty at any time. And then, on the other hand, I'd qualified in reserve to be a assistant transportation officer in the Air Force. Well, now, in this point in time, as they say nowadays, well, I was satisfied with my record in the Army Air Corps and United States Air Force. And for the rest of this tape, I want to concentrate on the peoples that I met in there and the places that I went and some of the things that I saw and done. Well, now, come to find out, I didn't got too much tape left. But I'm going to tell about one little thing that sort of stands out in my mind. It was back in 1944, and we were stationed in North Africa. Our squadron was at Tunis, about Tunisia, and we were, my airplane was working on this airline service. It seemed like that that was about the best job out. Really, no, I got to stay on it as long as I did, but I appreciated it, and we were flying back down to the country, back down North African coast, down to Port Lodi, back up. And we would fly over into Sicily. We had just established armies over in Sicily at that time. We hadn't moved over there yet. And the Germans they'd pulled out there, and they was over in Italy, just a few miles across there, 75, 80 miles. But anyhow, we'd fly over into up that North African coast, and we'd go over we'd hit Sicily, Catania, and Palermo. And we'd go on up in those little islands of Sardinia and Corsica and come on back and make the round again. But one particular time, we hit the island of Sicily over there on the east coast of Catania. And we spent the night there. And like always, Father told me, you come out in the morning about 8 o'clock, if it ain't raining. Well, I was out there that next morning, and happened to be raining. And Powell didn't show up right quick, so I went down to the operation office down there, and there was Captain Max Butler. And there's a little story behind Max. Now, old Max was my first pilot on my combat crew. Now, we had combat crews assigned to us. Got a pilot, co-pilot, navigator, an engineer, and a radio man. And at that time, my combat crew was Captain Max Butler and Captain Luke, and the navigator, I forget who he was, and myself, and radio operator was Carl Sellers. But on an operational flight, when it wasn't a combat mission, well, anyone might come out and fly the airplane, but this particular time, I had Captain Butler and Captain Luke, and we'd spent the night there in Sicily, and I was out there the next morning, and it was sort of drizzling rain, and we got the airplane all ready, and Carl and I, we pulled a daily inspection. and waited around a while. So I went on down to the operation office where the contact all the business. And I walked in there, and of course it was busy as a beehive, you know. All this communication stuff and all these pilots coming and going. And I see Captain Butler over there. And I walked over pretty close to him, you know, and just stood around and let him know I was there. And he was contacting some business there with a clerk, you might say. And after a while, I could see they was sort of, seemed like they were sort of an argument or something. Everything seemed to go just right between each one of them. And, they sort of shut it down. He came over and talked to me. He said, Sergeant, said, I'd come out here to cancel our flight for the day. It's raining, and we can't hardly fly in this kind of weather, you know how it is. But they just are just right on my tail. I can't get them off. So they want me to fly over there into Italy, excuse me, and over just out sort of east of Toronto, and pick up some people and bring them back. And I just can't get them off my back. And he said, look like I'm going to have to do it. He said, is Carl around? I said, yes, sir, he's out on the airplane. He said, well, Captain Luke is not here. He didn't have any idea we had to fly today, so I didn't bring him down. And he said, look like all I can do is go over there if you guys go. I said, okay, sir, I'd be glad to, and I know Carl will. Carl, he's pretty agreeable on everything. He said, okay. He said, all right, I'll sign in for this flight. So we took off, me and Carl and Captain Luke, and we started over that way. Man, it was raining, I'm telling you. It was just raining cats and dogs. Well, we flew on along there, and we was flying along, and I'm telling you, boys, it was a rainstorm, it was thunder, and it was lightning. And Captain Butler, he said, Sergeant, said, I'd just like to do it, but it's just too bad. He says, I don't want to turn around here in this rain. If I can get out in the clear, well, we're just going back. So, okay. So it was just sort of a rainstorm here, and then all of a sudden you just come out in the clear, you know. And, of course, Captain Butler, first time he comes in the clear, we're going to turn around and go back. Well, we come out in the clear, boy, I'm telling you, we left that rain behind. There's this pretty sunshine, everything as you ever saw, but you can see up in front of you, which is just head into the same thing again. But you come out in the clear, and Captain Butler, he figured, well, we're going to turn around now, and all of a sudden, here come 2 or 3 airplanes right by you, and going the same way you are, and you look out there, and they were old C-47s too, but they were Canadian airplanes, and they had a lot of our C-47s, and you looked out there, and them airplanes just went right on by you, you know. You could see them going out in the head. Of course, Captain Butler sort of throttled back a little bit, you know, and them old Canadian C-47s, they leave you, and you see them going right into that rainstorm, just a head minute away. He looked over at me, you know. Well, he didn't really say nothing, but I knew what he was thinking, you know, them some bitch can do it, I can't too. So he just plowed right onto that hailstorm. Not hail, might have been hail, but mostly rain. And we plowed right on through there. You fly maybe 15, 20 minutes, just you can't see nothing. Boy, it come right down on you, and then you come out in that sunshine. But anyhow, we went on over there, and he had a map. You know, at that time that all of Italy was occupied by the Germans, but they had sort of pulled out of the southern part of it. We had word that they had. We really didn't know, but we had thought they had sort of pulled out that southern part. And what we're going to do that particular time, we're going over and pick up some of these refugees, and we had a town that we supposed to land at, and he had sort of a pencil description of where the airfield was and sort of like that, you know. But anyhow, we finally got over there, me and Captain Butler and old Max, and yeah, it was still raining, and clouds were low, and we got over and we got lost, and we just didn't know where it was, and at that time, you know, you didn't have any fixes or communications on your radio or telegraph or radar to tell you exactly where you was, and the radio man over there wasn't really too much good at that big point. But Captain Butler told me, now we're supposed to fly over this particular town, and the airfield is out such a distance from it, you know. Well, we sort of got in position pretty close to where we thought that town was, but we really couldn't spot it. And the clouds sort of lifted a little bit, and we got down low, and we couldn't find a town, but we found some railroad tracks. And he told me, he said, now, okay, we're gonna follow these railroad tracks till we come to a town, and you guys be on the lookout at that depot and see what the town's name is, and we go from there. So we flew right on down that railroad track, and we come in low towns, and a lot of the names we couldn't spot or couldn't read, you know, a little bit foggy and things. We might have circled around that. But anyhow, that's the way we found out where we was. We went right up that railroad track just as low as we could, and we spotted them town. And finally, well, we spotted the town where we was supposed to be. But it was so souped in and foggy and rainy that we couldn't even find the airfield. So we circled around, and we followed that railroad track on down to a point that we knew, and then we took off back there for Sicily. And what made it so bad was that going back, every once in a while you get these little clear spots, and you'd pass some Canadian airplanes going back over that way. I'm telling you, they would fly at any kind of weather. It didn't make any difference what it was. If they were supposed to go, they went. Now, I mentioned Captain Butler. Captain Max Butler. He was from Biggin, Louisiana. Was a fine fella. He was tall, well-built, dark-headed fella. Had a walrus mustache. And his co-pilot, Captain Luke, was tall and slim and blonde-headed. Now, both of them had a little trouble getting a rank, but they finally made it. And they were buddies. You, off from a distance, you'd see them. They were always arguing. They were disgusted with each other. You could tell it. They was shaking their heads and throwing up their arms and everything like that when they were off from a distance. But when you get up to them, within talking a distance, they were just different kind of fellas. They never said anything. Anyhow, Captain Butler, I remember, was over in Rome one time, and I just got a letter from home from Mother, and you know, she was down in Shreveport, Louisiana, working as a practical nurse, and she told me that she was a nurse in a man by the name of Butler, and he had a son that was in the war over there as a pilot. And I remember I came out the airplane that particular morning, and Captain Butler said, Sergeant, said, I just got a letter from home. Said, is your mother Mrs. Willa Harris? I said, that's right. He said, well, she's nursing my father. He's sick, and she's his nurse. And I just got a letter from my mother telling me that. And I said, yes, sir, I just got a letter telling me that too. So we had a little something in common, you know, right there from that. It was sort of a personal and and touching thing. Well, Captain Butler and Captain Luke, I don't know what their problem was, but they argued and argued, probably by themselves. But they didn't want nobody to know about it. But I remember one time we were over in southern France, and we were flying supplies up from Marseille up to Luxembourg. We stopped off in Dijon and Lyons and Paris. But anyhow, this particular time, we were flying along, and we were going to land, I believe, at Dijon. Well, we came into Dijon there, and we came in on and down for a landing there, and there's something happened that we couldn't land, and we had to come back up. And Captain Butler, he gave a wheels up sign, and Captain Luke, he pulled him up. I was standing right there behind him, you know. And went on around, and we circled the field a couple of times, and we finally got an okay for landing. And we come on in, and we started our down flight there, and we was right on home. And we getting pretty close down there, you know. The wheels ought to be down, and the wheels was up. And you know, it was time for somebody to do something or say something. So I punched the co-pilot, Captain Luke, and just punched him in the point down at the wheels and the button down there, you know. And he see that the wheels wasn't down, so he put them down. But about that time, well, it was just it sort of Captain Butler was just a little bit confused or something, you know. He thought he'd come in with wheels down, and they wouldn't. All of a sudden they dropped down, so he come up and go around again. And boy, I'm telling you, he give Captain Luke a look that just wouldn't wait. And I just sort of wished that I wasn't standing right there. Because they never did argue or say anything. Nobody was around, but I knew exactly what Captain Luke was going to get when everything was over and everybody was out of hearing distance and everything. Well, anyhow, we come on back around and wheels down, and we come on in, and we landed, and I just sort of wondered just what kind of a blowing out that Luke was going to get. Now, another time, we was flying over in southern France, and we had the same crew, Captain Butler, Captain Luke, and we was flying along, and pretty weather. We'd going on up from Marseille, headed up there, pretty close from Luxembourg, and at the time we was flying along just about the edge of those Alps over there, Swiss Alps over in Switzerland. We come right along the edge of them. You can see them over there. And we was flying along there, and it was sort of pretty weather. And I was standing there right behind co-pilot and pilot, just looking out, you know. And we was flying along there, and all of a sudden, that all of the sounds stopped. I mean, you couldn't hear nothing. It was just dead silence. And I've heard about these air pockets, you know. And they said there ain't none. Somebody said here's some. But anyhow, we was flying along there, and all of a sudden, just everything stopped. There wasn't no sound of the motors, the engines, nothing. And I remember I was standing there, and when that happened, well, Captain Butler, he just glanced around at me, and he just looked me right in the eye. I don't know why he turned around and looked at me, but he looked at me, and I could just see he didn't say nothing, and I could just look in his eye, and he just looked like he said, "It'll be all right, Sergeant." And he turned back around, and just about that time, oh, that sound came back. I'm telling you, it sounded like a tornado, a freight train come through a tunnel, or what have you. But it all came back. But there for about 4 or 5 seconds, there wasn't no sound, there wasn't nothing. And if you want to think there's air pockets, or that there's not air pockets. You can just think it what you want to, and I just really don't know. Well, another time over there was flying into Sicily, and I told Captain Butler, I said, now, Captain, you going down there at Catania, night and spend the night there? He said, yeah. I said, yeah. Why? I said, well, you know what happened the last 3 or 4 times we landed in there? And said, yeah. Said, we got hijacked, didn't we? Said, got landed in there. Said, that's where Maria lives. Maria? Yeah. Said, yeah. I got to go up and see her. Said, we just can have to take things up. But anyhow, we landed in there, and it was just like all other times, most other times that was raining. And I sort of thought that if he hadn't come down there when it was raining that morning, everything would been all right then. This particular morning, we come down there and it rained, and they talked us into making a slide over there in southern France, and we did. We hauled some guys over there, and we landed a little old field over there in Italy, put them out, and always was there, wasn't there just a minute or two, but there's a couple of Canadian sergeants run up to the airplane. They had the parachutes and everything, and they were pilots. They were C-47 pilots, and the airplane was downed over there, and they were looking for a ride. They wanted to hitchhike a ride back. Okay, so they got on the airplane. It wasn't. That was the whole cargo. Just those 2 Canadian pilots, and well, we took off, and we started back towards Sicily there, and as usual, the weather was pretty bad. Now, with these 2 guys ran up the airplane there and wanted to get on, wanted to ride. Well, I went up there and I told Captain Butler what it was, and he said, they're pilots? I said, yes, sir. I said, they're flying sergeants, Canadian Air Force. He said, they fly C-47s? I said, that's right. He said, well, hell yes, get them son of a bitch on here. I want to see just exactly what they look like. Now, you pardon me here for the language, but that's what Captain said. Well, we took off in all that bad weather and everything, and I might have got a little bit ahead of my story here. I might have mentioned that Captain Luke was a flying co-pilot, but he wasn't. That particular trip, we had another co-pilot, a man that had transferred in the outfit. We had a policy in our outfit that any pilot that transferred in, it didn't make any difference what his previous service was. He might have been a command pilot on one of the big transports, or a bomber, or a fighter, or anything. But when he come into our outfit, he flew co-pilot until such time that that our engineer officer, executive officer, checked him out as pilot. And lots of times they didn't make it. They just had to fly co-pilot until if they proved to everybody that they was a pilot. Well, we took off right in that rain and everything. It sort of seemed like, those pilots, they were in complete charge of that airplane. They could use their own judgment about flying. And this particular time we had sort of got a little bit far up there in Italy, over on that east side. That mountain range, went right down the middle of it. And seemed like they were awfully hesitant about going, but coming back was sort of a different thing. They'd try their best to get back. So like going home, But anyhow, coming back, we had to fly over the range of mountains there. And, well, they were not too high, but for an airplane like ours, we couldn't get up very high. About 18,000, 20,000 feet was our limit, and we couldn't do that for any length of time, just a short period, because you had to have oxygen over 10,000, and we didn't have any. And if you went up any higher than that, if you just purely for speculation and looking around, or avoiding trouble or something like that. Anyhow, we took off for bad weather, and I noticed these Canadian pilots got in back there, and they had, you know, they had the parachutes with them. Anybody that hitchhiked on an airplane always carried a chute with them. It was sort of a thing. Well, I noticed them. They got in back there, and they buckled the chutes on. They got them all ready and everything. And then they sort of spread out there on the floor. They made them a bed. They laid down there and they went to sleep. And through all of this next little tale, I'm telling you, that those pilots laid right there, and they slept just like babies. Well, we was flying along there, and I generally sat back there or lay back there in a cargo compartment, and old Carl, he got that navigator desk there. And look, he had a little cubby hole of his own. So I might have been sitting in the navigator spot. But anyhow, Captain Luke and Captain Butler and this co-pilot, they seem to be conversing up there and having a little trouble, and I didn't want to exactly stick my head in. So I started back out of the way. But we hit that weather, and worse than what it was. And after a while, Captain Butler turned around and mentioned me to come up there, and he says, Sergeant, I'm afraid we lost. Said, get Carl up here, Carl Cellar. Well, Carl went up there and they talked for a little while, and tell you, he was lost. Didn't know where he was. He said, I know about where I am. Said, I come into this sort of a valley here, and I got this mountain range all around me, and said, can't get up over it. Too high. Said, all I can do is circle around here. And he told Carl, said, you see what you can do. Well, Carl got back on there, and he couldn't get anybody on his radio. And we got on his wireless, and at that particular time, well, they had these radio stations. They sort of formed them in a triangle, sort of. And they had one way down there in west coast of North Africa, and they had one over there as far as they go around Egypt and Cairo over in there, and then they'd have another one as far as they could get it up towards the battle line. And if you were in that triangle any place, well, you could send out this signal on your wireless, so like an SOS. Of course, he could talk to them. And they could figure out there, they get a fix on you, and they could tell you just about where you was and how to fly and everything like that. Well, we were just circling around in that spot there, and you couldn't see anything. But after a while, they come back on that telegraph there, and they told old Carl where it was. Said, you down there in the mountain range. That you got your pop's stealing on three sides. Said, but on the other side, said it's open. You got a gully there, and you can go right on through. And they give him a heading. They told him what heading to fly. And Carl went up and told the pilot about it. Okay, you got your instructions. You know what to do. So we kept flying around there, and I noticed all of a sudden he'd come out of the circle and he'd head up that way. All of a sudden he'd turn back. He'd start circling again. He said, looked at me and said, it's not that I don't trust Corporal Sellers. I know he's right on it, but I just got to get up my courage here, because if I happen to be wrong on my calculations, or don't go through that pass, well, we're going to hit one of those mountains. I was like, yes, sir. So we circled around there, I'm telling you, till everybody just got disgusted with themselves, especially Captain Butler. Now, it was no laughing matter. We boxed down there in that canyon, and just one way out, and your gasoline don't last forever, you know, and it looked like the storm was. And eventually we had to do something. And no place to land down there. And just an old rocky terrain. So finally, circled around there, and Captain, he looked at me again. He didn't say nothing, but he just had a sort of a determined look on his face. And he got her straightened out, and boy, we just hit it right through that suit and that fog and everything, you know. Just any second, you know, expecting to, just, you know, ram up against the side of a mountain, something like that. But I don't know. I had all the confidence in the world, and the pilot and the radio man, and I really wasn't old enough to, have sense enough to be really afraid, and not too much experience. But now during all this time, those pilots, those Canadian pilots, they still laying back there just sound asleep, didn't bother me. And I knew they knew what was going on. But anyhow, we started to do it, and now or never. And we flew along there. It must not have been over maybe 15, 20 seconds, but it seemed like eternity. And all of a sudden, boy, we busted out in that sunshine. I'm telling you, it was the prettiest thing, almost the prettiest thing I ever saw in my life. That beautiful sunshine, the weather was just clear, and we was well up above the mountains and everything, and we could take it on from there. Now, really, the sad part of all this, it didn't seem sad at the time. After it was over with, it seemed like a good thing. But this co-pilot, he just went to pieces when we got in there, and that Bob Stem there. Well, he just sort of froze, sat over and sort of babbled like a baby, and he wasn't no help at all to Captain Butler. And I remember all the way back. He never said anything. Just sat there, and Butler didn't say anything to him either. But I never saw that fellow before. Since we got back to the base, and I never saw him again. They transferred him out. He just couldn't make the grade. Now, these little stories I'm telling you here now are just when we're on operational flights. Now, we had the war area over there was all laid out in zones, and if you went past a certain point, you were in the combat area, and it was a combat mission, and everything like that. But I wouldn't want to confuse these operational flights with an actual combat mission like a parachute drop or a floating glider or something like that, or haul in troops, because what they might call an invasion. And on flights like that, well, it wasn't up to the pilot. They told him what to do, and he done it. It didn't make any difference what kind of weather or whatnot or what you had. Of course, don't know about the pilots, but of course the enlisted men didn't have to go. But after they said they would go and got on the airplane, you couldn't very well get off, And that's sort of the way it was. You had a big thing over there, that war, I'm telling you. And the surprising thing of it is that it was run so well. I mean, everything seemed to fit in, and after all, I believe it was the success of the whole thing was just on account of guys like Captain Max Butler and Captain Luke. Well, here's another little tale. And at this particular time, we had just moved out of Sicily, and we'd moved over to Rome, Italy, Ciampino Airport. And we'd been over there maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And one morning, I was out there on the airplane, me and old Carl Seller, again. We got through the daily inspection. I like to get it over with pretty early, and old Carl was a fine fella. He come out and he hit me, and I really don't know where my assistant was, old Marshall Warren, because, when I was out there, he didn't have to be. He could have been any place, just sweet-talking him women around there, which wasn't a bad pastime. But this particular morning, we'd already eat chow. We'd come up and eat chow, and back out there, we'd pull that daily inspection. And airplane pretty good shape. Well, here comes a Jeep out there. There's a soldier driving, and our commanding officer at that time was a Major Bill Tish. He got out, and the Jeep drove off. And he said, "Sergeant," said, "she ready to go?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Okay." And he climbed up in the airplane, and Carl got in, and had a few things to do around the airplane. You get those locks on those stabilizers, wing tail stabilizer, and get some safety pins that fitted in your landing gear, so if while you're on the ground, if your hydraulic system went out, your landing gear wouldn't fall, you know, and damage the airplane, and that was the last thing the engineer had done. Prior to taking off, you'd take all those surface locks off and take those pins out of the landing gear, and you always done that personally. No one but you would do it, because you was responsible for it. And the thing was, you know, if you took off with your pins in the landing gear, of course, the landing gear couldn't come up. Well, you'd have to come back down, land, take them off. But if you left one of them surface locks on, your wing ailerons, or your rudder, or your rudder or tail ailerons back there, well, you couldn't maneuver the airplane. You just take off there, you know, you're liable to just, you couldn't go. You just wouldn't get any altitude, and you'd fly in the first thing that was in front of you. So it was a pretty important thing. It was real important. And this particular time, well, Major Tish, he got up there in the cockpit. He was sitting there on the outside, and I was standing down there. I had everything off except my landing gear pins, and I was waiting for the co-pilot. And he hollered out the window there, said, "Start number 1." And okay, I stood back. He started the port engine there, and revved her up. And then I could see in motion up there the other engine. Went around the other side, and he started up the other engine and got running. Well, I was still waiting on co-pilot. I was standing there, and after in the clear, I could see him. He kept looking down at me, and all of a sudden he motioned me to come up there. Well, I got in the airplane, walked up there, and he said, "Sergeant, said, pull the pin," said, "we're ready to go." I said, "Well, I was waiting on co-pilot." He said, "Ain't no co-pilot." I said, "Pull the pins." Well, I went back out there, and I pulled the pins out, and we took off. Just me and him, no call. Well, I was standing there in behind, and you know where Jim was standing, right behind the pilot and co-pilot, and just looking, you know, observation. And he motioned me, "Sit down over in that co-pilot seat." I sat down over there. And he told me, said, "Sergeant," said, "this is one of them flights." Said, "You know, we were stationed down there in North Africa for a long time." And he said, "I'm just like you." He said, "I made a lot of contacts down there." And he said, "Didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I sure did." He said, "We're going back down there to pick up my girlfriend." And when he said that, I just thought, because I'd remembered while we were stationed down there in Tunis, that over there in, the country of Tunisia, and over there in the city of Tunis, it was a big town. Oh man, it was modern and everything, and they had a lot going on around there. It had a theater, you know, like sort of opera here, what they call theater, and people performing on the stage and everything like that. And there was one woman there, a girl, the star of this whole thing. She was a beautiful thing, French woman, and she was Major Tish's girlfriend. And now he had done left there and moved over there into Italy, Rome, got all set up, and he was going back over to get his girlfriend. He told me, he said, "Now, Sergeant, this is a sort of unofficial flight, and what we're going to do, we're going down there, and actually the flight was about an hour and 45 minutes. He said, now, we're going down there, and we're going to fly over the airport there, and, you know, out there behind it, you get these rolling hills and everything. He said, we're going on out there, and we're just going to sort of roll and fly down them hills and sort of look like that we're practicing takeoffs and landings, or, approaches and pulling up just at the right time. If there's anybody over at the airfield that's watching us, well, that's what we look like we're doing. But he said, now, there's one particular place out there in that field, very big field. He said, there's one tree right in the middle of it. He said, now, we're going to fly along, and go down, come up, just for appearance sake. But now, all of a sudden, said, we're going to go down there by that tree. He said, you'll notice that there's a Jeep sitting out there. And we're going to land there, and we ain't going to be there but just about a minute and a half. And said that woman's going to get in, her cut the grips, and we're going to take back off. And anybody sort of looking, spotting around out there, they don't know what we're doing. Well, we've done that. we flew over there and we flew around and finally we landed. And I opened that door. And that girl got in there. I'm telling you, she's the most beautiful I've ever seen almost. And she had a couple of bags, but she threw them in there. And we took off. Took off back up. Really, we was flying along that water there, and this girl sitting in the back there with me. And I made her a cup of coffee. Had, you know, I had everything. Man, I had a little Bunsen burner. And I had everything you wanted on the airplane. And all of a sudden, she called me up there, and I went up there. He said, Sergeant said, I got on ahead in here. Says, he told me what ahead. Said, you think you can keep it right on and get us back? I said, I want to go back and paternal a little bit. And I said, I'll try my best. Well, old car company, I got co-pilot seat there. I was sitting over there. And Terry, she went on back here and he shut that door between the cockpit and the cargo department. And Bo, he sat right there, and I looked over the old car and I said, Sergeant, you always remember this from here on out, boy. You had one flight with the first